Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 already of This Week in History here in the Four Lads podcast. And making his debut on the show tonight, I've had the Governor, I've had Mr. Clifford, I've had Kenny. I've got now the third and final member of the executive team on the Four Lads podcast. Andrew, my very favourite podder, how are you?
I'm doing very well, Davey. Yeah, no pleasure to be on for this, and I'm as I was saying to you just before we came on. Now, I'm looking forward to learning plenty as well. You know, there's one or two things in this I definitely remember. One or two are just slightly before my time as well. So I believe before your time as well. So it's just be interesting, and I'm looking forward to this one, mate.
Yeah, well, if anyone hasn't seen the show so far, in effect, what we do is we go through this week in Rangers history. And as Rangers history goes back to 1872, some of them do go back a little while. And I have been at pains to point out that in 154 years, not everything has been perfect and rosy. So you might get the occasional tragedy or sad story. And I think tonight, actually, we're going to cover at least one of those, because Andrew's seen the agenda already. So we're going to start, though, on June the 4th. So this show's going out on Thursday, June the 4th. So June the 4th, 2014, we're not going to go back too far this time. Kenny Miller makes club history by becoming the first player to sign permanently for Rangers for the third time. He signed from Vancouver in Canada, where Rangers were in the championship for his third spell. The first time he had joined in 2000, 14 years earlier, when he joined from Hibs. He then left to go to Wolves. Played for some other team that I can't remember. Anyway, he went to Derby, came back to Rangers in 2008, stayed to 2011, went away, played for a bunch of more teams, and came back from 2014 and left in 2018. Do you remember where he went the last time? Very few folk remember this, actually.
Was this? Did he stay in? So this is after he left for the third time, right?
A lot of people remember that he went to Wolves and remember he went to Turkey.
Did he go to Livingston afterwards?
Well done. He went to almost as a player manager. Well done. Yeah,
I remember this because I'm sure. I don't think he was straight away a player manager. I think he just joined as a player, but then their manager got sacked, and then he became the player manager.
Yeah. So before we talk about our Kenny Miller memories, I remember I said at the start, the first player to sign permanently 3 times, and I made sure I put the word permanently in there, because actually there's been a player in the recent past who's actually signed for Rangers 4 times. He signed on loan, then left, then signed permanently, then left, then signed on loan, then signed permanently, which is 4 times he put pen to paper as a Rangers player. That was Stephen Davis. Stephen Davis was actually signed for Rangers 4 times. So I'm at pains to say Kenny Miller's record is because it's a permanent signing. Sure. So what's your, before I talk about stats and stuff, what's kind of your abiding memories of Kenny Miller as a Rangers player?
So growing up in the era that I did, not as unfortunate as young Andrew, obviously, but still very much past a lot of the good times and towards some of the bad times. Kenny Miller's a huge figure in Rangers history for me. And part of that is because of where he went to after he'd been with us for the first time. Always going to be notable. I know that this is not the show to try and claim that he was the first ever player to do that. So I know others have done that as well. But certainly in recent history, And I do remember something that my old man would always say, that it's one thing to go from them to us. Like, obviously, you've just seen light. You've made the correct decision. To go from us to them, that was always the what on earth do you think you're doing? But I do remember, obviously, 2014 when he was coming in. That was our first tilt at the championship. Needed, to make a step up, and I remember him and Boydie signing at the same time, which everyone thought was going to be very good. We've got those two up front, proven goal scorers. Well, walk this easy, no problem at all. I think what was interesting for me is that I think Boydie was only with us for the season, 14 to 15, whereas Kenny Miller, I think, endures for a while. Clayton side. Which is surprising when you think about that. It's weird to see how those eras cross over, but maybe some of that's just down to how long Tav's been here and indeed how long Kenny Miller stayed around. And I always remember him being very reliable as a goal scorer. I mean, obviously coming in the second time, he had plenty to prove. It's always going to be a difficult road to hoe, but you get goals against certain teams, and it's amazing the credit that will put in the bank. And even his third spell, when I think it was clear that he still had some of the same flaws to his game, he's one of those prototypical players who, anytime he had a chance to think about shooting, he'd generally fluff his lines. But if it was just instinctual, he'd more often than not hit the back of the net. Still had that flaw in his game, but a reliable goal scorer, if you got the ball to him in the right places, he would get you a goal. I mean, that's always a good thing for a Rangers team to have. And the fact that he did hang around for so long through the Pedro Caixinha era, certainly someone who I, on balance, have some fun memories for.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously, because I'm slightly older than you, I can actually remember the first time he signed. Advocat spent lots of money and lots of players that summer. He was one of the ones that brought in. He was meant to be one for the future. But it's mad to think of. He played under Advocat and he played under Graham Murty, for example. I mean, that just does my head in, things like that. Or else, the first really good partnership he had up front was with Michael Moles, and then at the end of his career, he was playing with Morelos. It's hard to believe that the same player can play in, because it feels like different centuries. Never mind anything else. I've got it written down here. He had great partnerships with Moles. He had great partnerships with Boyd, Jelovic, Morelos. He scored 10 goals against Celtic. He scored against them at Ibrox, scored against them at Parkhead, scored against them at Hampden. He had some great moments in a Rangers jersey. And the one you alluded to a minute or two ago when we signed him the second time after he had been at Celtic. I remember at the cup final against Queen of the South, and there was the rumours going around that Walter was going to bring him in that summer, and the fans made it pretty obvious they didn't want him.
Yes,
Walter being Walter, done what good managers do. He identified somebody he thought would make the team better, and he done what he thought was right. And the very first Old Firm game we played the following season after Miller joined, it was the day Kuzan scored, Pedro Mendes scored, but Miller scored twice that day. In his first game, and he had this habit of scoring against them from then on. It was great. As I say, he scored 10 goals against Celtic. He did score 11 Old Firm goals, but one of them doesn't count.
Yeah, the other direction. Like I say, someone who always contributed, and in big games as well. I mean, unlike Boydie, was someone who was always making a difference in these bigger games as well. And yeah, obviously, I've got clearer memories somewhat of the second and third times that he was with us. But even that first spell, I think he was one of that crop of that Hibs academy that just produced a whole bunch of good players. Kevin Thompson comes out of that crop of players as well. There's probably some other ones as well, but we don't need to dwell on those. It was a really good crop of young Scottish players, and as you say, one for the future, but clearly, one who's identified really well and someone who continued to deliver for, a long period of time. The fact that he had partnered with all those different names that you've rhymed off is pretty ridiculous when you think about it. But yeah, as I say, you can buy yourself an awful lot of credit scoring in Old Firms for Rangers. And he did that repeatedly in matches where it really mattered as well. Yeah,
300 games for Rangers, 116 goals. That's not too bad. He was especially the first spell. He wasn't really the centre forward. He was kind of playing off a centre forward. He wasn't the main striker. Although he sort of became the main striker as he got older. Managers who played under: Advocat, Smith, McCoist, Warburton, Caixinha, plus Kenny McDowell, Stuart McCall, and Graham Murty. So, I mean, there's a whole podcast series just in that series of managers, probably. But I have to say, if I had one Kenny Miller memory, if I finish the Kenny Miller section of this show, it has to be the League Cup final against St Mirren when we went down to 9 men and he scored that header with 7 or 8 minutes to go. That was one of those days that you go to Hampden just expecting to win the trophy. It's going to be this dead easy afternoon. Then we get 2 men sent off in the second half. Backs against the wall. Walter down to the touchline, directing traffic. Davy Weir steps out, plays a 1-2 with a pigeon, I think, and then anyway it ends up with Kenny Webb. It was actually a terrific header. What a celebration! It was almost as good as the Lovenkrands last minute goal. Hampden went absolutely nuts.
Yeah, I think that final is always remembered for Walter because of his influence in that game. But it's not like it's a low pressure situation there as well. Miller does really well to get that one down, as you say, off the 1-2 of the pigeon. And yeah, it's a pivotal turning point there because it was a trophy we were desperate to win because we had other things going on at the time, but that was one that was really good to win, and in circumstances as well where you are so up against it, where you're looking at it going, this is going to slip away from us here. But it's one of those things that cemented Walter, I think, and a lot of the fans as he'll bail us out. He'll find a way to win this. But you could only do that with the tools that you had. And Kelly Miller was one of those, really reliable ones who could make a difference when it counted.
That for me, that was the day that remember McCoist was meant to be the manager in the cup game.
Yeah.
As soon as we went down to 9 men, Walter just appeared at the touchline, just basically pushed McCoist out the road and just said, "Sit down, son. I'm doing it now."
Ali, you've had your chance. You've had your moment, but fucking step aside.
Anyway, so Kenny Miller, the only man to sign 3 times penalty for Rangers, was signed on June the 4th, 2014. Now, I'm going to do June the 5th, and we're going to get this one out the way. Right? June the 5th. This is the most recent one I've done so far because it's only a year ago. It's hard to believe this is only a year ago. June the 25th, 2025. Rangers appoint Russell Martin as the new head coach of the club. I was going to say the manager, but he was the head coach, wasn't he? I think fair to say not the most popular choice before he got the job. And I think definitely true to say the most unpopular Rangers manager I can ever remember. And I've seen the vast majority of them, believe it or not. I have never before, up until his tenure, seen, for example, Rangers scoring a last-minute winner and the first thing the crowd do is sing about how much they don't like the manager. It was the most bizarre few months, and what can I say? The man that was too sweaty to wear a shirt and tie, the man that totally disrespected our traditions, the guy who, I've got it here, 17 games, won 5 of them. Do I want to talk about 6-0 away in Bruges? Do I want to talk about only winning 1 league game? It's a style of play which we might talk about in a minute. If the word style actually appears anywhere in it, it'll be a surprise. But how will history remember? How will we remember, as those who've got the scars, remember the brief Russell Martin period in charge of Rangers?
Well, it's a year on, right? The least successful manager in our history. And as you say, David, it's a long history as well. But man, oh man. I do remember beforehand, the names that were being floated around. Gerrard always coming up, Kevin Muscat.
Ancelotti. Remember Ancelotti was the name at the time?
Yeah, not that one, but his boy.
No. Junior Ancelotti.
Yeah. But still, exciting stuff. And Russell Martin, who, most fans' most recent memory of, if they weren't keeping up to date with what was happening in the Championship, was this relatively poor defender who'd signed for us, and it wasn't like he was alone in that crop of defenders either. We had some howlers during that time, but yeah, a poor defender at that point. And then folk who had seen him managing, were obviously cognizant of how poorly he performed in the Premiership as well. But as with anyone, you come in, give you your chance, see how you do. I think the problem was very quickly started racking up strikes against him. The suit thing, I'll always say it. I think it's an easy thing for you to do. if you're looking to help win over the fans, it's a tradition. You might personally find it silly. I mean, heaven forbid, I have to get dressed up for any kind of event. But if I'm, the manager of Rangers, then yeah, I'm going to get dressed up appropriately for it. It's just the done thing. And then, yeah, obviously the results do not go our way. And as you say, a style of football, there was no discernible style that we could see. Questions about if the players were being coached or not. The fact that we had players who came in and looked like they got worse under his coaching. There's a litany of stuff there. Obviously, it's only a year. I don't want to really tempt fate by saying, there could be worse things up ahead. I would like to think not. But it is obviously going to still be raw. We're still dealing with some of the after effects of that. If we don't spend our first few league games just throwing away points needlessly, maybe the league table looks a little bit differently. Maybe there's less of a mountain for Danny Röhl to climb. Mm-hmm. It's still fresh and raw, but yeah, someone who I think never really seemed to get it. And you expect players who have played for us to get the expectations, to understand what that fan base is going to ask of you. And he never really seemed to
I would actually say, Andrew, he didn't try and get it. It's not. I don't think it was the fact he didn't get it. I think it was the fact he didn't want to. He didn't want to get it. I personally think.
No, I think that's a fair point. Just it comes back to that. The suit thing. Easy. It's an easy win for you, even if you don't agree with it. Just do it. Like it's an easy win, but just like you say, and it can be arrogance if it doesn't go your way. If it does go your way, then hey, you're going to get all the praise in the world. Kenny Miller was coming in on his second spell off the back of some questionable decisions, but did stuff to make us go, well, Kenny, I'll forgive you, man. That's just fine. You're all good. Martin never really got anything to get buy-in from the fans in his brief time here. And as you say, I remember that final game vividly. Just we score a goal and the fans are almost upset that it's happened. Which I don't think I've ever seen before. Completely wild times. And a chapter of history, always interesting to talk about, but very happy it's closed for now.
Yeah, I think I've never seen the crowds fall away as obviously. I mean, back in the 80s and things like that, it was a very gradual process. As the team was unsuccessful, the crowds just slowly got worse and worse and worse. But under Russell Martin, all of a sudden, European games had 10,000 empty seats. And that hadn't happened for years. He just was obviously out of his depth completely. And I'll be honest with you, I read it out there, 17 games, 5 wins. I think he was lucky it was as good as that. I genuinely do. I think that there was a number of games that we didn't lose, that it was only for the poor finishing or good goalkeeping that stopped it happening, because his style of play was just completely wide open. He asked defenders to play in areas that they should never have played in. He asked midfield players to go out wide, and he left this big space through the middle of the park. Teams like St Mirren, teams like Dundee, they were creating 4 and 5 clear chances every time they played against us. It was ridiculous. Anyway, I suppose the last question is he the worst ever Rangers manager? And statistically, you said he was earlier on, but in your time, there's been Caixinha, there's been Murty, there's been Kenny McDowell. But you would say he's the worst of the lot?
Well, Kenny McDowell seemed like he actively didn't want to be there. I think.
No, I know, that's true.
It didn't seem like didn't actively want to be, just straight up. But yeah, in terms of all our permanent assigned managers, especially with the backing that he was given as well, I think to have done as poorly as he did, I'm sure we've had other managers in our past who were thrown in at times who haven't been as successful, but they're caretakers ultimately. He was given a big war chest, plenty of money to spend, plenty of backing as well.
Yeah.
And just really failed to deliver on any promises that he had there.
Yeah.
So yes, in my lifetime, absolutely.
I tend to agree with you. And you'll be glad to hear that that's the end of talking about June the 5th, because I so much wish I'd found something else to talk about for that date, but that was the one that stood out for me, unfortunately. So we'll go on to June the 6th, D-Day, as it's also known, isn't it? So 2015, again, not too long ago, but actually we're going to be talking about things from before that, because June the 6th, 2015 was the day that Hall of Fame Rangers player, Rangers defender Colin Jackson died. Now, I saw the vast majority of Colin Jackson's career. You won't, he's before your time, I'm well aware of that. I'll just quickly go through his Rangers career. So he joined Rangers as a teenager, 1963. He didn't leave Ibrox till 1982. His last game was the Scottish Cup final. So he was 19 years a Rangers player, which is a seriously long length of time.
Mm-hmm.
He actually didn't make his debut till 1966, and he didn't become a regular till about 1968. So he was in the reserves for about 5 years before he broke into the first team, which I think is a bit of a throwback. Reserve teams and reserve players and players that were happy to bide their time. And I'm not sure you get them anymore. It's academy football and stuff. I don't think you get that now.
We have ended up with some players who fall into that category, but it's not necessarily wanting to.
So he played under Scott Simon, he played under Davy White, played under Willie Waddle. But by the time the early 70s came around, he had established himself as the kind of first choice centre half at Rangers. He played in the majority of the games in the European Cup Winners' Cup winning season. And he played, for example, in the great semi-final win against Bayern Munich. He was selected for the team. He was going to play in the final, and he got injured the day before the final in training and missed the final. Derek Johnson moved back into centre half, and Alfie Conn ended up coming into the team. He wouldn't have played if Colin Jackson had been fit. So the 1972 guys all call him the sort of 12th Bear, the 12th Barcelona Bear, because he should have played. And actually, a lot of the memorabilia you get for Barcelona Bear stuff, when all the players were alive, a lot of them has got his signature on it, because they kind of included him in a lot of the stuff.
Sure.
But by the mid-70s, he was the Rangers centre half. He was the Scotland centre half. He won 3 league titles in 4 years. He won 2 trebles. He was a really reliable, no nonsense, no frills defender. It just defended his goal. Really good in the air. Scored a lot of important headed goals. The first time I ever saw Rangers win at Parkhead, Colin Jackson scored the winner. So he's always got a little bit in my heart because of that. 1974. He scored the day we won the league in 1978, the last day against Motherwell. When it went to the last day, he scored after 5 minutes, another header. He scored an injury time winner in the League Cup final against Aberdeen when John Gregg was a manager. So he had his moments at the other end of the park, but first and foremost, he was just one of these really reliable defenders. Mm-hmm. And looking back now, he's more than 500 games, Hall of Fame. So not leaving when he probably could have left in the 1960s was probably the best thing he ever did. Yeah. What do you remember, if anything? Oh, the other thing I'll say about him is everyone thinks of John Brown as bomber. John Brown was the second bomber. Colin Jackson was the first bomber. That was his nickname. And don't ask me where it came from. I haven't a clue.
No, I mean, obviously, as you say, Davey, predates me just slightly. Finished playing for Rangers 5 years before I was born. So not.
Does that make me feel old or what?
not exactly within living memory for me, but my dad has spoken about him before because my dad was at Barcelona, and they got the news, obviously, that he wasn't going to make the team, that he'd failed his fitness test, and he was worried about it at that point. It's like, well, no, obviously it's Rangers, so naturally we get a important injury right before the most important game ever. That's just Rangers all over, right? But yeah, obviously predates me, but just that length of service and that record as well. I mean, we're going to, I think, discuss Tav a little bit later on as well in the context of one of the other agenda points. But,
yeah,
picking up that number of trophies, but with that length of time, Folk have thrown stuff at Tav for the length of time that he's been at and the number of trophies he's picked up. He picked up a decent amount, but it's a long time. So if you divvy it up and look at, how many trophies you win per year at the club, that maybe looks less impressive. But any player who gives that length of service to a club is rightly going to be remembered as a Hall of Famer. I don't think you spend that amount of time, that dedication, being involved in the majority of that European run, unfortunately not the last one, always going to be important. And yeah, as you say, could pop up with a goal or two as well. So yeah.
And after he finished playing, quite a long time after he finished playing, he started doing the hospitality suites. Remember, he used to do the halftime draw. You used to see him about in his suit and tie in the stadium. Actually, the last time I met I met him a couple of times. The last time I met Colin Jackson was in the Rangers shop, when it was just in the corner between the Copeland Road stand and the Govan stand, and he was selling Rangers charity wristbands. He was standing at the till trying to sell wristbands for £1 each, and I'm thinking, that guy played 500 games for Rangers and folk are all just walking past him. Absolutely bizarre. But I think Rangers history is full of a lot of great players, but most great teams had guys like Colin Jackson in them. Guys that were Mr. Reliable. Somebody, when they ran out on the park, you knew what you were going to get from them. And that was, he had a great partnership with Big Tom Forsyth in the 70s. Probably stayed at Rangers a wee bit too long. He was a bit long in the tooth by the time he retired, but that was because he was so good at being a centre-half that John Greig actually brought a couple of centre-halves and they ended up bringing Colin Jackson back again because he was more reliable than they were. He's never going to be one of these players that's going to be up in bedroom walls or anything like that, but he's the kind of guy that your history's built around for me. And,
100%. Yeah, you need to have those reliable players. Obviously, a more recent player, but absolutely Sasa Papic level of consistency. Absolutely. Always giving you that 7, 8 out of 10 and always, providing just a solid base to build from. As you say, Davey, that's what successful teams are built on. You can't have all flair players and all ones who are going to dazzle you with moments of magic. You need reliable guys as well who you can trust to do the important bits of work.
Yeah. Andy scored the first goal at Parkhead, the first winner. And for me, that's the one big memory of them all. Right, okay, so I'm going to go on to June the 7th. So this is one you definitely remember. June the 7th, 2006. This is the end of a Rangers career. So Dutch goalkeeper Ronald Waterreus opted against signing a new Rangers contract and instead signed for AZ Alkmaar in his homeland of Holland. Waterreus had only joined the club in January the previous year on deadline day. He only played 64 times before he left. Yet, I think it's fair to say that he'd done a remarkably good job for Rangers in that 18-month period. When he joined, Stefan Klos had just got a serious knee injury in what we now call the Helicopter Sunday season. And at the time, everybody thought this was the end of our league chances. We all thought it was a disaster because Stefan Klos got injured. And this curly-haired, porn star-looking goalkeeper appeared from Manchester City. He made his debut in a League Cup semi-final. We beat Dundee United 7-1. A couple of weeks later, we went to Parkhead, hadn't won there in years. And he was excellent, and we won 2-0. Won the League Cup against Motherwell 5-1 in the Davy Cooper final, as it was called. Played at Helicopter Sunday, and then Klos was fit again by the start of the next season, and Alec McLeish had a choice to make. And it ended up, Waterreus was the one that he went with, and Waterreus played all that next season. So Rangers actually got for the only time, got to the knockout stage of the Champions League that next season. So Ronald Waterreus has got that little bit of Rangers history. He's the only goalkeeper to have played in a knockout Champions League tie for Rangers. So what's your memory of Ronald Waterreus?
I mean, he's part of this lineage that we have had of just really successful goalkeepers. We haven't, with some of the lower league seasons aside, we've got a really good run of just solidly reliable goalkeepers, and that's absolutely my memory of him. Just how good he was. I think, to be honest, my memories are a bit coloured because of Stefan Klos. I think I liked him more when I was younger, and certainly I think Klos's longevity as well with us.
I think it is fair to say though, peak Klos was definitely better than Vaterus.
Yeah, no, 100%. But again, similar to Colin Jackson, a good, solid, reliable player. It wasn't like you were throwing in a Matt Gilks or anything like that. It was, it's still someone we can rely on, someone who can do the business here. So, again, that Champions League run, managing to get there, as you say, for the only time, unfortunately, always going to be important to us. It was still in that era, pre-Gerrard, I think, where European football was absolutely just, it would be nice if we get it, but we know we're going to be out of there anyway. It's never going to be something we're going to enjoy too much. There are only a couple of exceptions to that, unfortunately, in my lifetime I can recall. But in general, before Gerrard comes in and then Gio after that, where we do establish more of a European legacy, where we do start going deeper into these competitions, in fact, going very deep in one case. It was still that kind of period where I remember, certainly when Walter was in, that was one of the criticisms that always got lumped at him, just us failing to go deep in Europe, because he was set up to play Scottish League football instead, and that won us titles. So, I mean, there'll be complaints, but not too much, and certainly not the context of where we are right now. But yeah, always remembered Waterreus as just a solidly reliable goalkeeper. Again, not as flashy, not pulling off wonder saves like Klos McGregor would do, but still just a good solid option there in defence. I think I'm trying to recall how he left, because correct me if I'm wrong, but were there not some issues with an interview he gave back in the homeland?
Well, he was one of these typical Dutch players, isn't he? In that quite opinionated, and he used to go back to Holland and give interviews, and quite a lot of time those interviews would be quite critical of either teammates or his manager or somebody. And then he would always claim they were misquoted and the translation didn't translate correctly and all that sort of stuff. But then the bottom line when he left was that I don't think it was Paul Le Guen was the manager by then, and I don't think Le Guen was guaranteeing him that he was going to be his first choice.
Sure.
So he decided to leave, and Le Guen then signed the absolute bomb scare that was Lionel Letizia instead, who made Waterreus look like peak Andy Gorham, to be quite honest with you. The thing I probably most associate Waterreus with was how good he was with the ball at his feet. He was probably the first Rangers goalkeeper I remember that actually could play the ball at his feet like an outfield player. There hasn't been very many of them, but I actually think he was a little bit ahead of his time, almost in that we talk about that for goalkeepers a lot more now than we did then. But he was one of those guys you could fire a pass back at him any old way, and whether to his right or to his left, he could control it. Sometimes even beat a guy running in and then pass it, not just lump it, but actually pass it. In fact, I think that might have been why McLeish gave him the nod over Klos when he did, because I think Klos wasn't all that comfortable with it, and it was almost like night and day, the two of them, in terms of that aspect of a goalkeeper. But
Klos definitely much more of what I would call a traditional Rangers keeper, which is I do not want the ball anywhere near me. Get this the hell away from me. Do not pass it back to me. It's going to go all the way over there, lads. Bugger off. Like the McGregor style, which I like to see.
Yeah. And Waterreus strikes me as the kind of goalkeeper that he would probably be in bigger demand in modern football now than he was then because of that. I mean, he was a good enough goalkeeper, but he was really excellent. And you look at the teams that all want to play out for the back and stuff now. He'd have sweeper keeper. He was, for me, he'd have been ideal for it. But as I say, he was only with Rangers 18 months, only played 64 games. But when you include Helicopter Sunday and Knockout Champions League football in that, then he's got that little bit of Rangers history that should be remembered.
No, for sure. Definitely. Always, if you got that in your CV, it's always going to be a good time.
Right. So that was June the 7th. There's only one place I can go on June the 8th. I can't go anywhere, and I'm going to throw a little. It sounds a bit big-headed, this one, but me being an author and all that, I wrote a book about the season 1977-78, and June the 8th was a date that was tattooed right through the start of it. Because June the 8th, 1977 is the day that Rangers paid Clydebank £100,000 for the services of a winger by the name of Davy Cooper. So Davy Cooper became a Rangers player on June the 8th, 1977. Now I know this. I know he's before your time as well. I do know that. I've got the privilege to be able to say that I actually saw his first ever game at Ibrox. I saw his last ever game for Rangers, and I saw probably 80% of the games in between. So it's probably no great surprise to say that he is one of my absolute all-time idols. And then when I done my first and favourite show, the number of guys that came on it and talked about he was their Rangers hero. Without doubt, the most naturally gifted footballer, Scottish footballer I've ever seen play in this country. Despite the fact he wasn't quick, he couldn't tackle, he had only 1 foot, couldn't head the ball. But forget all that. And you know the one thing that I'm not going to do when I talk about Davy Cooper is I'm going to talk about stats. I talk about his 500 odd games and all the medals he won, his 7 League Cups and 4 Scottish Cups and 3 League titles. I'm not going to talk about that because I don't think Davy Cooper is about statistics and numbers. I think Davy Cooper is just about entertainment. He's just about something you watch and you get you out your seat. The jaw drops open. The reverse pass to Durant, the free kicks in cup finals, the beating 5 players and laying a plate for somebody. All that type of stuff is what I remember for Davy Cooper. Yes, he's got all these numbers and he's got all these medals associated with him, but he was just the most incredible Scottish football player. And before I pass over to you, I'll just mention the fact that just before he retired, when he was back at Clydebank by then in the early 1990s, he done a Scott Sport programme as a pundit. He was on it with Ray Wilkins. It was a Rangers Champions League game. And at half-time in it, because he'd announced his retirement, I can't remember who presented it, maybe it was Jim White or something, I can't remember. But whoever it was said to him, "We've got a little tribute for you because this guy's heard you retiring." And it was Ruud Gullit, who at the time was probably the best player on the planet or one of the best players on the planet.
Yeah.
And Gullit talked about Davy Cooper as if he was Pele. He'd played against him when he was younger for Feyenoord, and he'd always remembered him. He'd said he was one of the most skillful players I've ever seen. And when Gullit then retired years later, he'd done an interview for 442 magazine and done his all-time 1 to 11, the greatest players he'd ever played with or against. And it's Marco van Basten and Lothar Matthäus and all these guys. It was just an absolute who's who of world football. Who was his number 11? Davy Cooper. Honestly, I'm so glad that there's YouTube and things nowadays for young guys, for young supporters, because it's an education watching them. The greatest left foot I've ever seen, and one of the greatest footballers I've ever seen as well.
Yeah, and I mean, as you say, Davey, obviously before my time, but you and me put together a little documentary about Davy Cooper, which I'm very proud of still. And what was really good for me was obviously going back and seeing all that footage. You know, the fact that we had a good wealth of that captured so that we could go back and see, and it's just it's a highlight reel of just skill all the way through, from his earliest games to his latest games. It's just absolute quality, and what was so edifying for me was looking at the comments of that after it had gone public and everyone had had a chance to see it, and the number of people who are saying similar to me, before my time, but wow, what a player. I'm just seeing the skill, and obviously we're clipping all the best bits, but Davy Cooper just looked like a player who was made of best bits. It was all highlight reel, and like you say, it's that stuff that got you out the seat. It's you'll have your Colin Jacksons and your Ronald Latteris who would do
Yeah.
good, reliable football, but the ones you fall in love with are always going to be the ones who can get you out your seat, who do that exceptional 10 out of 10 stuff, and the stuff that's just beggars belief more than anything else. Some of the quality that we have highlighted in that doco, just mind-boggling. Even for a modern player to be producing some of the stuff that he was producing then. We know football's evolved, we know football's changed, but he had some undeniable skills that still translate to this day. So before my time, but I think it's a mark of how significant he was. And hearing people who did see him live, the reverence which they talk about him, the regard that they hold him in because of what he meant, what he made people feel, always going to be important. And a player I wish I could have seen live, but still very happy that I've got access to see some of his best bits even now.
And I think one of the things that makes my generation love him all the more was the fact that he stayed through a period of when Rangers were really struggling quite badly in the early 80s. He won a treble in his first season, but then we didn't win the league for 9 years. There was this period of time when he was at an age that he should have been at his peak, really. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There were, especially in the very early 80s, there was a couple of seasons where Cooper was really inconsistent. He was dropped in a lot of big games by John Gregg. John Gregg was the left back that played behind him when he first came to Rangers. And I think it is fair to say Cooper was never one for tracking back and never one for protecting his fullback, so to speak. And I think 34, 35-year-old John Gregg did not appreciate that side of his game behind him because he had double the work to do down the left-hand side. And I think when it came to big games, especially in the first few years of Gregg's management, he dropped Cooper quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
A, because I don't think he thought his defensive side was good enough. But to be fair, B, also, Cooper was pretty inconsistent at that point in time because I don't think he had a manager that really believed in him. And I think he kind of suffered a little bit for it. But under Jock Wallace and under Graham Souness especially, he was absolutely unplayable at the time. There was a 3 or 4 month period just after Graham Souness came that he was doing party tricks almost in a I wouldn't say a weekly basis, but almost a weekly basis. I mentioned the reverse pass to Durrant. He scored 2 solo goals against Hearts in consecutive games that no other player in Scotland could have scored. He was just a one-off. We won't see players like that again. I don't think. I'm not sure that modern football's got room for talent like that when it doesn't work hard enough anymore. Unfortunately, I hope I'm wrong, but I suppose the last thing we always say about David Cooper, unfortunately, is when he passed away so young and stuff like that. But he's got a stand named after him at Motherwell. If Clydebank still existed, he would have a stand named after him there as well. He's got a hospitality suite named after him at Ibrox. Every club that he went to, he left such an impression on it that they wanted to mark it in a permanent way. That's how good he was. And I know I'm getting old, but I'm kind of glad I'm old because I can look back and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, 100%. And yeah, like you say, a player who always had an impact no matter where he was. I think that was one of the great things that we pulled out of that doc, which was not just the impact that he had at Rangers, or obviously that's always going to be our focus, but seeing the impact that he made at all of those other clubs as well, Motherwell and Clydebank especially. Some player. Yeah.
I can't believe we've got we've got a show with Russell Martin and Davy Cooper in the one agenda. But there you go. I did say you get one extreme to the other, didn't
I? Yeah, sublime to the ridiculous.
Absolutely. So I'm now going on to June the 9th, second last date. And when I say the year this time, then you definitely know this is before my time, right? Because June the 9th, I'm going to go back to 1865, which is actually 7 years before Rangers were even formed. Because June the 9th, 1865, in Largs, Ayrshire, just up the coast from where I live, the birthplace of the first ever Rangers manager, William Wilton. He was born on June the 9th. William Wilton wasn't much of a football player. He actually joined Rangers at the age of 18. And he never ever left Rangers until he died in 1920. So he had unbroken service to the club from the age of 18 to his death. He joined as a player, but he was never good enough to play for the first team. He played for the reserves a few times. He played for the third team more than he played for the second team. But his talents were off the pitch, not on it. He was a football administrator. He was an organiser. And back then, football teams didn't have a manager because we're talking the 1880s here. So he was given the job of what was called the match secretary for the reserve team. Now, the match secretary would organise fixtures, organise transport. He would chair the selection committee for picking the team. He would organise players to get treatment for injuries. He would do all that kind of stuff, all the organisation round about the team. And he'd done that until 1889 when he became the first team match secretary. It's a forerunner to the manager position. And while he was the match secretary, Rangers won the first ever league title. They won the Scottish Cup for the first time. They moved to the new Ibrox, and he was a massive part of that. Archibald Leach, the designer, the architect, was actually his friend. That's how they got the job. And then in 1899, Rangers won the league without dropping a point. 100% league season, the only time it's ever been done. And just after that, Rangers decided to go down the management route, and they appointed William Wilton as their first manager in June 1899. He was a manager all the way through to 1920. Won the league 7 times. And he built Rangers up into something that they weren't before he was there. He took them from not even having their own ground when he first took over till his last season as manager, when they broke the Scottish attendance record for a club match outside of Hampden with 80,000 inside Ibrox. He built Rangers up from very little to being the biggest and best supported club in the country. And the other thing I would say about him is he is actually the man responsible for a number of the standards that we all associate with the man who followed him. He actually built some, not all, but some of the foundations that Bill Struth then built upon. It was actually Wilton that brought Bill Struth to Rangers. Struth was a trainer at Clyde, and William Wilton brought him to Clyde and to Rangers in 1914. So, what was I saying there? Oh yeah, the standards. So for example, if you look at pictures of the Rangers team in the early William Wilton years, the early 1900s, there's all these big handlebar moustaches and beards and long hair and stuff. There's even players wear hats in some of them, believe it or not. By the time he'd been the manager for 10 years, you will not see a Rangers team picture with anyone with facial hair in it. Because he decided that was unbecoming of a Rangers player. He was the one that decided on certain standards off the park that Bill Struth then built upon. The stuff about never bring the club into disrepute, the club always comes first. The club comes before the individual. It was actually William Wilton started all that stuff. And by the time he died in 1920, I'll talk about his death in a minute. By the time he died in 1920, he had built the best team in the country. And a lot of the players who then went on to win lots and lots of league titles under Bill Struth had actually been signed by William Wilton. Players that mean a lot to me. Well, not a lot to a lot of younger folk. Your Sandy Archibald, your Davy Meikle-Johns, all these guys, Tommy Cairns, Tommy Muirhead. He signed all them. Then in May 1920, just after Rangers had won the league by a considerable distance, he and a fellow Rangers director went to celebrate winning the title by going to the director's yacht in Gourock, where they were going to sail it for a little holiday. But a storm came in, so they couldn't get out the harbour. So they put the anchor down, but the yacht got tossed all over the place, and it ended up they decided they had to abandon it. It was taking in a lot of water. They had to get off the yacht. The director got off, his wife got off, William Wilton's wife got off, but as Wilton, who was going to be the last man off, tried to get off the yacht, it moved. He slipped into the harbour and he drowned. And that was when Bill Struth took over as his assistant. He then became the manager. He's only 54 years old. A man who, as I say, built a lot of the Rangers standards, who was the first manager, who was the Willie Waddell equivalent for the first Ibrox disaster. The first Ibrox disaster in 1903. Wilton was the face of Rangers in that. He was the one that rebuilt the stadium. He was the one that done all the fundraising for the families. He was the one that sold lots of players to make money to give to the families. An absolute Rangers giant. A giant. And in my humble opinion, the worst omission in the Rangers 150-year celebration was that he almost never get mentioned in it. And I think that was scandalous, because he was, without doubt, along with the Giant Pioneers and Tom Valance and guys like that, he was as much responsible as anyone for the club that we know of.
I think, that his place in history is assured, because there's only ever going to be one first Rangers manager.
That's true.
Will always be him. But yeah, as you say, someone who's spoken about far less than figures like Bill Struth, who, their mark on our club is there for all to see. But so much of that, Davey, I didn't know. I wasn't aware of. I know the name because I'm the type of person who likes to go on Wikipedia and do deep dives and have a look at all this stuff. But yeah, his impact I think is unquestionable because of the period of change that he oversaw, seeing us go from pre-1900 all the way through, and serving the club for that length of time as well. It is always going to be huge. Talked a lot about dedication and length of service to the club. That's some length of service that he gave to Rangers, and for that, if nothing else, he deserves to be remembered.
Yeah, I just, as you say, I think he has a name to a lot of people, but I don't think a lot of people know much about him. And it is a long time ago. Let's be fair. Not everyone's an anorak like me that wants to look back to 100 odd years ago to see what was happening. But I do think he's a little bit unappreciated when it comes to the history of our club. And I think that if you look around Ibrox, we're putting statues up and we're naming hospitality suites and we're doing this. And I just feel that his name should appear somewhere. I don't know where it should appear. I'm not saying he deserves to be above this one or above that one, but I just feel that there should be something that remembers him, because guys my age will eventually fade away as well, and eventually it will become the stage that even great granddads won't have seen him. But I do think that William Wilton is someone that the club should have his name more prominent than they do. I mean, even in the museum, it feels to me that it goes from the Gallant Pioneers and it kind of jumps a little bit into the early 1900s, and it doesn't really do justice, I don't think, to how much work some of these guys put in.
Yeah, no, anyway, for sure.
Anyway, sorry for boring you with William Wilton, but he's one of my hobby horses, I'm afraid. Right, so we're going to finish with June the 10th, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to do another old one, but I'm going to tie it in with something new, though. Because in June the 10th, 1925, my God, 101 years ago, Rangers' longest-serving player signed. for the club. A right back, full back. He lived up in Aberdeen. He played junior football for a team that no longer exists. A little junior team called Aberdeen Muggy Moss, believe it or not. Great name. He signed on for Rangers, and his name was Dougie Gray. How many years did Dougie Gray play for Rangers? Go on,
You told me this beforehand. You'd like to think that it would not be me to forget something I heard 55 minutes ago, and yet I have absolutely forgotten.
Okay, so he joined in 1925, and he didn't play for anyone else ever. It was his only senior team. He retired in 1947. So he played for Rangers for 22 years, our longest serving player. He was as I say, he was a right back, signed by Bill Struth. Struth was his own manager, actually, because Struth was still the manager in 1947 when he retired. He won 10 league titles. He won 6 more league titles during World War II that don't get counted. If you did count them, he would have 16 league titles. If you count things like the Glasgow Cup, because back then that was a big tournament.
Yeah,
the Charity Cup was a big. It used to get crowds of 80, 100,000 at cup finals against Celtic and those tournaments. And if you include World War II as competitive football, Dougie Gray played 940 games for Rangers. Competitive games, that doesn't include testimonials or friendlies or tour matches. It doesn't include any of these things. If you include that stuff, he played more than 1,000 games for Rangers. If you compare it to John Gregg, he played something like 200 more games for Rangers than John Gregg did. And John Gregg's regarded as nobody will ever play more games for Rangers than John Gregg. Again, it's another one of these names I don't think a lot of people know too much about. But the reason I'm going to bring it a little bit up to date is because we've just seen the departure of a long-serving right-back, James Tavernier. And I was just going to do a couple of little comparisons, which are crazy when I actually do them. But 2 right-backs, 2 long-serving right-backs. Okay, Dougie Gray, lots of medals. I'm not going to talk about medals because that would just be silly.
Yeah.
James Tavernier, I can't remember how many games. It was 560 odd games, 144 goals. How many goals did Dougie Gray score in 940 games?
Right. Well, it's going to be one of 2 options here, right, Davey?
It's not 0, right? It's not 0.
I was going to say it's going to be surprisingly high or surprisingly low. So I'm going to gamble with surprisingly low and say like 5.
You're close. The answer is 2. 2 goals in 940 games, and they were both penalty kicks in the same season. He must have suddenly decided he was taking penalties and then stopped again. I don't know what happened, but or somebody was injured maybe. But he took 2 penalties in season 1929-30, scored them both, and he never scored from open play in 940 games. He was an out-and-out defender. His big reputation actually was for clearing balls off the line that the goalkeeper wasn't going to save. He had this great reputation for reading the game and getting behind his goalkeeper and clearing it off the line. A defender. That's all he was. He wasn't anything else. So Tavernier had a career half as long, 11 years compared to 22. Interestingly, Tavernier actually played, if you count only official games now, so if you only count because there wasn't Europe back then, there wasn't the League Cup back then, so if you only do Dougie Gray's League and Scottish Cup games and nothing else, because they're the only ones that appear in the record books now for back then, the number of games are very similar. Because it takes about 300 odd games off of Dougie Gray doing it that way. He's in the high 500s. Tavernier's in the high 500s. 144 goals compared to 2. How has football changed?
It's a difficult one to pin down. That, yeah. Who can say, really? But yeah, again, a mark of that evolution, right? I mean, you will still to this day have people saying, "I want my defenders to defend." but you can go to an extreme with that, I think, and that would be one of them. So no, getting up the park, that's for you boys to do. I'll be staying right here, thanks.
I genuinely don't think Dougie Gray crossed the halfway line very much.
Mm-hmm.
I think his job basically was, because every team had wingers back then, it was basically mark the left winger, and if the ball comes into the box, clear it. That was it. That was, if you've got the ball at your feet, give it to one of the footballers.
But then you have to say, in that era, and as you say, with the reputation he had of clearing the ball off the line as well, that's as good as a goal in some games. You know, taking away a near certain goal just to defend yourselves that well, that's going to be huge. And again, it's something that successful Rangers teams have always been built on, is those rock solid defenses. Goal scorers will come and go, but if you can keep a clean sheet, then you already won half the battle right there. You nick a goal, then you're all the way there. But if teams know that they are going to struggle to score against you at all times, then it does wonders for you, and it makes you a more intimidating team to play against as well. So, yeah, that's always going to be something to relish and cherish as a player.
Yeah, and the other thing that I said there about Mr. Gray was that our longest serving player only played under one manager.
Mm-hmm.
How many managers did Tavernier play under? the comparisons between the two of them are they're ridiculous almost.
Yeah, and I know folk will probably say, well, there's a reason for that, because he's the one who got rid of them, obviously. But also it speaks to the longevity and the tenure that we gave the managers as well. Mm. That will be Bill Struth, right? That he was under. So Struth managed us for decades.
34 years.
I feel it is unlikely that we will get managers committing that same amount of time to us these days. God love Danny Roll, but I think even if he does the best stuff in the world, he's not going to be with us for 34 years. So yeah, it's a different era for sure. Absolutely. But fascinating to look at that as a point of comparison, just to see how much things have changed in a little over 100 years.
When he did retire in 1947, Dougie Gray, Bill Struth said about him, he is my best signing for Rangers. That's what he said about him. And we consider Bill Struth's first signing was Alan Morton, whose face is up whose portrait's up at the top of the marble staircase, and who was probably in his day the best footballer in the world. I think that tells you something for how much Struth saw in terms of what Dougie Gray gave Rangers for so long. He gave them this solidity week after week after week after week after. And I'll tell you, to play as much as that back then, he couldn't have been injured that often.
No.
So he must have been made of stainless steel almost, because it was a bit of a more physical game back then. Let's put it that way. I was
going to say, yeah, it's a bit more robust in challenges and whatnot. Yeah. So stronger knees those days than now.
Right. So that was June the 10th. Dougie Gray, our longest serving player. So we've went from all kinds of legends to all kinds of numpties in the one programme. Andrew, how's it been for you?
Fascinating. I've loved this show. All the episodes that you've done so far, Davey, I've really enjoyed them. So a pleasure and a privilege to come on and go through. As you say, a relatively uneventful period, because this is the time of the year where there's not games happening. This is just signings, ins and outs, and people joining the club, people leaving this club. But still, I mean, it's a mark of the history that we have within this club, that you can pick a week like this and you can still pull out, as you say, sublime to the ridiculous. Go from Russell Martin to Willie Wilton. Some journey that is right there.
Exactly. So anyway, I hope our viewers find tonight's episode interesting. I've been really appreciative of all the comments that the previous shows have had. Please do continue to comment on them. Tell us even what memories we've managed to dredge up. Although, if any of you remember William Wilton, then what you're doing on the internet. And finally, before we go, I'd just like to thank our sponsors: Rhino Express, Cliveview Fire Protection and Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions, CSD Air Conditioning, Candid, good old Amrit, and rydc.co.uk. So this has been a week in history. Until the next time, another week in history from Andrew, from myself. Bye for now.
The Four Lads podcast is sponsored by Rhino Express, Cliveview Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions Limited, and CSD Air Conditioning, in partnership with Black Rooster and Art of Gold. Thank you for listening to or watching the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.